Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again. My name is Michelle Morris. I'm from Consolidated Planning Group, and we've got a fantastic speaker today. Miss Elizabeth Sharpe is going to be talking about dealing with aggressive and challenging children and how to help them thrive and why traditional discipline strategies don't really work very well in this situation. So first of all, before I introduce Elizabeth, I do want to go through a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, we always record our webinars. We put them on our YouTube channel after the webinar has finished, but we will send it to everyone who has registered. We will also send you a copy of the slides so that you'll have those to look at and you don't have to take copious notes. I also want to let you know that because we are in webinar mode, I cannot see you or hear you. I know how many people are out there, but I can't see you or hear you. So the best way to ask any questions or provide any comments or feedback is to put those in the chat box. That makes it easy for me to monitor the chat. I will let Elizabeth know if we have any questions come in, and we'll get those answered for you. And then, of course, if we don't get to your question, feel free to just reach out to me or Elizabeth afterwards. I've already put my cell phone and my email address in the chat box, as well as the contact information for my office, Consolidated Planning Group. And you'll be able to contact us for help afterwards if we don't get your questions. All right, so with that said, we've got about an hour today. First of all, I want to introduce you to Consolidated Planning Group. We are an independent, holistic financial planning firm located just outside of Houston, Texas, in the Sugar Land area. So we serve families all throughout Texas. And as a matter of fact, we are also branching out to other states. So we can serve families anywhere in the United States. We've been doing this for over 30 years. We have a lot of experience in financial planning, insurance, financial services, investments, all of that kind of stuff. We have won awards and we're members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We are National Social Security Advisors. I am also a chartered special needs consultant through the College of American Financial Services. So we do this as the main part of our business, helping families who have a loved one with some kind of individual or developmental I said individual, I meant intellectual or developmental disability. So it's not just something that we can do or we do on the side of our main practice, or it's once in a while. It's like 95%, I would think, of our clients um, have children with some kind of disability. So we truly live and breathe this stuff. And it's because the owner of our company has two special needs individuals in her life. So that's why our whole company focuses on helping to educate and to advocate for you. So families come to us for things like protection plans, thinking about, how to prepare for the future and what happens if something goes wrong along that journey. If somebody lives too long or passes away too early or becomes disabled along the way, it could throw a wrench into things. We talk about lifetime care plans and care needs for your loved one. So once you're gone and they're still going to be here, somebody needs to take care of them, whether they need just a little bit of help now and then, or they need full-time 24/7 care. It can be quite expensive. So we want you to think about that ahead of time. We often help families with transition planning. There are three main transitions in life. That one where you're turning from a minor to an adult, you turn 18, and a lot happens then, financially and legally. There is that transition period of graduating from high school. You don't want them just to graduate to the couch. So what does that transition period look like, and what comes after high school? And then there's the transition from being in mom and dad's home to being wherever they're going to be out in the world. Are they going to be in a group home or a residential community or in some kind of apartment or home on their own with help? What does that look like? We help you understand all of the benefits, state and federal benefits that surround individuals with disabilities. ABLE accounts, we help you understand your special needs trust, all of those different areas as it pertains to your family. And again, we're here to advocate and to educate. Out of all of the financial advisors in the United States, and there are over 263,000 of them, out of those 263,000, fewer than 200 financial planning financial advisors in the US focus on special needs planning the way that we do at Consolidated Planning Group. That's less than 0.1% of all the financial advisors in the US focusing on special needs planning. So it's really important that you remember that the time to start planning for your family is right now. It doesn't matter if they're an infant or an adult or anywhere in between. Planning as soon as possible will help you sleep better at night. It will help you have a grasp on what you need to do and what small changes you can make over a long period of time to have a bigger impact rather than trying to get everything done all at once. We want you to think about those post-high school educational opportunities, vocational opportunities, and residential opportunities. Some of these things might have waiting lists, so you do want to check out these facilities and places early to see what they offer and get on that waiting list if there is one. And then finally, my last bit of advice regarding special needs planning for now, before I introduce Elizabeth, is that it's important that you're very careful when you just assume that a sibling is going to take care of your individual. So let's say older sister and younger brother with a disability. Older sister, you just think, oh, she'll take care of them. They love each other. They have a great relationship. It's fine. Well, she might have her own family at that time, her own career, her own goals and dreams, and her own struggles. And now that she's going to need to take care of little brother, in addition to everything she's already got going on, that can feel like an obligation. And, she might never want to admit it to mom and dad. She might not ever want to not help her brother, but think long and hard before that becomes an obligation for her. On the other hand, little brother has seen his sister as a friend and a confidant and a sibling all of these years. And then all of a sudden, little big sister is going to step into the role of caregiver and start acting more like mom. And brother might have an issue with that. He might say, "What? You're my sister. You're not my mom. You can't control me." So the resentment can build in that situation as well. So it's not always an ideal situation either way around. So just be very careful and give it a lot of consideration and thought before you just assume that a sibling is going to take care of your loved one. Okay, so today we have Elizabeth Sharpe with us. She's going to be speaking, and I'm so excited to hear what she has to say. I have a brief bio here for her that I'm going to read to you. Elizabeth Sharpe, uh, MED. What does that stand for, Elizabeth?
A master's in education, and I also have a master's in counseling.
There we go. Thank you. She is a learning and behavioral therapist and the founder of Sharpe Successful Solutions, LLC. She has been an educator for over 30 years, a former college child development professor, and school behavior interventionist. She equips learners, children, teens, and young adults to be successful learners and have positive social relationships. In addition, she coaches parents to develop the right mindset and acquire the right tool set to ensure that their children are successful in life. She specializes in anxiety, aggression, executive function, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, ADHD, ADD, ASD, PDA, holistic health, neurofeedback, trauma-informed practices, even marriage and family coaching, and home education. She does it all. She works with families in person or in her private practice, which is in Godly, Texas, or online. She currently serves clients in 8 states and Canada. She and her husband have been married for 25 years. Congratulations on that. And are the proud parents of 3 neurodiverse children, ages 21, 8, and 7. When they're not homeschooling, living at trampoline, skate, or water parks, they enjoy trying new restaurants, visiting state parks, and doing adoption advocacy. So, with all of that in mind, please let's turn it over to Elizabeth. And like I said, if you have any questions or comments as we're going along, put those in the chat box and we'll get to those as soon as we can. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm so glad to be back, Michelle. And hi, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good day. And if you're watching this on the replay, it's a pleasure that you're here. So excited to come back. I've been here a few times and scheduled to come back on different topics as the months continue. I'm super passionate about this for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm a mom. And a lot of what makes me successful as a learning and behavior therapist or a coach is I've been around for a while. And I have 3 children that all needed different needs. And even though I was an educator by training, I was not a special education specialist. I was not a learning and behavior therapist. I wasn't the thing that I got trained for. I was a child development professor, and that's what I did mostly, with a lot of parent education strewn in. And then my children happened. And like all the mamas that are here today or dads, we're trying to be intentional about helping our kids. So go ahead and go to the next slide. These are my 3 kiddos. And as we walk through this, please ask questions in the chat. I want this to be interactive. I'm also going to ask you some questions. So please, 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 when I ask a question, go ahead and post your answer so we can see. But let me introduce my kids really quick so that you can know who they are. These are my 3 children who have made me the best learning and behavior therapist on earth, because there is nothing like working with your own kids to really push you to the brinks of learning new skills and new mindsets and equipping yourself with new tools. Our eldest, my husband and I's eldest is Maya. She's 22 years old now. She lives in South Miami, and yes, she's safe right now. She's at the very end of Miami, so all is good. She started our journey. She has 5 learning disabilities, including all the Ds: dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and ADD, excuse me, auditory and visual processing disorder. And so that was very new, even to my husband, who's a special education teacher, because one of the things you have to understand that is significant, and why I'm so successful at what I do, is because people get trained in silos. They don't get trained to understand the other things. And I didn't know that when we were walking through with Maya. That said, we got her through, we graduated. She is a successful, profitable, which is most important to parents, massage therapist. She works with athletes, and she runs her own business. She also is a youth leader, very involved in youth ministries at her church. She also is a coach. She coaches young littles in All-Star Cheerleading, which she is a 15-year veteran of All-Star Cheerleading. She's won a bronze and gold medal at the World's competition. And she also is in college getting a certificate in operational management. So she's just done so well. And a lot of it has really been God's grace, not me. But along the way, we learned, and she's really a testament that if you are in a place that you feel like, what is going to happen to my kid? I really agree with Michelle. It's all about planning. It's all about being intentional. Don't think it's going to go away. And we were that way with Maya, and every step of the way we were intentional. We sought answers. We did things that were uncomfortable. We did things that cost money. That we are not financially rich, but you do what you got to do to make sure your kids are successful. So please don't give up. And we'll talk about how I help parents not give up. Marcus, who she's carrying, is 9 years old. He is on the spectrum, has PDA and ADD and sensory processing disorder. We adopted Marcus. We got him out of foster care at 6 months. We adopted him by the time he was 13 months. He was fast-tracked in the system. He is academically brilliant, and is just like a ninja warrior and very athletic, and really keeps me on my toes as he's entering pre-adolescence now. And then we have Zachary, who is our newest member to the Sharpe family. He was a foster child in the system for several years. He came to us in February, and he was legally adopted July 26th, so he became a Sharpe July 26th. And Zachary is a sweetheart, but also came in with tons of trauma. We are currently at the end of professional testing for diagnosis. I'm suspecting he has dyscalculia, definitely ADHD extremities, sensory issues. But nevertheless, my family keeps me on my toes and keeps me practicing, not just from a research perspective and a practitioner, but also as a mom. And then we'll go on to the next one there. All right, so I'm going to ask you all, this is all about why do traditional strategies not work with many children, particularly those who are perceived as extremely challenging and those who have aggression or anger issues. And so if you could put in the chat, if you have one of those in your professional life, your personal life, what strategies have you tried that have not worked, that you've tried them and you're like, oh my gosh, this does not work. So let's see, we've got chore charts, calm talking, then moving to yelling. Yes, not that I've ever yelled. I hear people yell. I've never yelled once in my whole life. If you believe that, then I have some land in Florida to sell you right now. All right, times in, consequences, rewards, yes. Absolutely, we're looking at some of these positive rewards, loss of privileges, time out, yes. Yes, all those are methods that sometimes do work, but many times do not work. Yes, spanking, yep, it happens. Token economy, spanking, raising our voice, which is the one that I just try to get rid of in my own life and everybody's life, because I think it's probably the one we go to the most, I would say. Dopamine rush. Yes, my 9-year-old is a dopamine addict and fit. Yes, he was very upset right before this call because they're home this week and he's not getting his dopamine hit every day. Timeout, gentle verbal reminders, loss of computer time. Absolutely. So all of those are strategies, except for the spanking and yelling, that are typically will work on some children. Yeah, believe it or not, from a research perspective, yelling is worse than spanking. Not that I'm advocating spanking, but really when we our mindset and how we talk to kids is so significant. And it's the hardest one as busy moms, as working moms, as dads, and we're juggling. And if you have multiple children like me, right, I got two that have very different needs, by the way. Both my 9 and 8-year-old have extreme, completely opposite needs. My 22-year-old's out of our home, so she's no longer in our home. So yes. So ready, I'm going to give you your first piece of advice and you're going to hate it. And you know, it's going to be the one that you're going to hate the most. And that is that if you have tried a strategy, I would say your max is 3, and it's not work, stop. Okay, here's why. If something is not working, we're going to talk in depth why this is. If there is a strategy that your child is not responding to, then it's not the right strategy. Every child is different, whether they're neurodiverse or not. And if you have multiple children, as I have figured out in the last 6 months, it is not, it's just not wise, nor good parenting to continue to use a strategy that just does not work. Okay. And then the research around yelling, you could, I mean, I don't have like anything off the top of my head, but if you just Google the effects of yelling on children, it's there. You can go to understood.org, which is one of my favorite websites. It's a free, education website that has a lot of stuff. I've done 4 hours of parent training for months and I've tried more than 3 strategies. Yes, I hear you. Our 9-year-old went through a very tough time. He actually stopped eating. We went through some serious aggression, serious aggression. And literally it caused me to really rethink and redo how I practice to understand aggression and children in which just typical things don't work. So yes, so number 1 strategy for you as the mom, as the dad, as the teacher, if the strategy doesn't work, then stop. Okay, so the question is, what do we do? And hopefully we'll get to some. And let me just do a disclaimer. I'd like to say that in 50 minutes, you're going to get all the answers that you want. And the reality is, I'm going to speak in generalities because there is no way, and I work one-on-one with students and families until I know your family, because this is a very layered situation. It's like losing weight, right? We can say stop eating calories, but it's complicated for every person because we all have different lifestyles. We all have different genetic makeups. Children have different genetic makeups, and we have different environmental situations going on in our life. Some of you are single parents, married parents, divorced, in the process of divorce. There's so much going on that to say, use this, if I had a magic pill, I could charge you, $5 million and we'd be done, right? But it doesn't work that way. That said, I work with the most challenging students on earth, and they have success rates. So let's move on to the next. Many factors interplay with the brain that do not allow traditional methods to work. It's really important. Again, genetics is about 20% of the piece of the pie, and 80% is really environmental factors in our society. So even though children, and this can be taken the wrong way in wrong circles, but let me just say, the brain is a muscle. Okay, let's just stop there. Thus, if children or adults come in predisposition to whatever that is, it doesn't matter what it is. By the way, even I've worked with children who have brain trauma. Like I had an 11-year-old who had a stroke at 4. So even brain injuries, right, that are very severe. The brain is a muscle, and with the right inputs, we can begin to see some better results. Okay, different for everybody. Time frame is different for everybody. There is no one plan, but there are many. But I want you to remember that to give you some hope, because the brain can be restructured. And I would love to recommend Dr. Caroline Hope. If you've never read any of Dr. Caroline Hope's, or Caroline Leaf, Caroline Leaf, her research around trauma and rewiring the brain. I've had an opportunity to train with her twice. I've read most of her books. Her stuff is just phenomenal and research based around the science of trauma and rewiring the brain. And she's phenomenal. She has a podcast, YouTube channel, all the things. So she actually did research in Africa with severely traumatized individuals, particularly children. And so I say that to tell you this. If you're sitting there hopeless saying, my child's never going to change, at that point, you need to stop, because that's just not a true statement. It's just not a true statement. We just haven't figured out what I would call the secret sauce of their brain. That's what we need to figure out. So let's move on to the next one. All right. These are some, not all, but a good chunk of what is influencing a child not behaving well. What is influencing traditional methods not working? What is influencing aggression and anxiety? By the way, at the root of most aggression is anxiety, by the way. I'm a former angry person, so I understand anger really, really well. I lived it. I had an angry mother, and I had to overcome, and I'm no longer an angry parent, but I had to overcome that when my daughter was very, very young, and it really got in the way when she began to have learning disabilities that we were unaware of at that moment in time. And I'm so happy my husband, who is a really amazing man, said, you need to get some help because this is not good. And so it was really great, and I did. And so as I've moved through the journey, when I work with clients one-on-one or in my group coaching programs, what I do is these are the things we begin to weed out. And when we get to what is happening, I'm telling you, we begin to make some strides that are pretty phenomenal. So gut lining. Why is gut lining? A lot of you may or may not know that 80% of serotonin is in the gut. That's our happy hormone. And actually our gut controls anxiety, which again, at the root is really what's driving aggression many times. It's not fear. We think it's fear, or we think it's manipulation and control, but it's really anxiety is a lot of the root issues of what we're seeing. But it doesn't play off as anxiety, because many of us think anxiety is crying or hiding in a corner, which some kids do. But anger really unnerves us. Let me tell you, it unnerves me sometimes with both. Now, my 9-year-old, not so much anymore, because we have figured out the secret sauce. My new child, who's been transitioning and getting used to a new life, he's good now. But man, when he first came in, it was a tough situation that we got through successfully. Nutritional deficiencies. We can't ignore nutritional deficiencies, because we know the connection between nutrition and most of our kids don't eat well. I'd like to tell you I eat 100% clean. We don't. We do our very, very best, but there are some things, there's some testing that I do with my kiddo clients around, okay, what are we missing? Because there are some key things. Obviously, a couple of the ones that just, if you have not tried, is a clean omega. Clean omega is related to brain issues. Magnesium is the other one, if you can get a clean a magnesium. So there's a lot of different ones, but there's also a couple other things that don't show up. So definitely that's really important. Auditory processing. This is key that people don't think about. When you tell your child something, if they understand, and I know you guys think they do, but if they really did not process it, okay, it's going to look like misbehavior. It's going to look like complete rebellion. It's going to look like, I don't even care what you're saying to me. And we really have to rule that. Auditory processing, two of my kids, my new child and my eldest has auditory processing issues. Visual processing is another one people miss. And again, only a visual doctor, not an eye doctor, because again, you can have perfect hearing and perfect vision in terms of seeing, but you still have processing issues. My eldest had visual processing, could not read because we did not take care of the visual processing before. So that affects behavior because again, visually, if you say, what do you mean you don't see that shoe on the floor? What do you mean? Organizational, how things are organized. Oh my goodness. So if you're telling your kids clean up the room and they won't clean up the room, why aren't they cleaning up the room? There's a couple things we need to do in the environment, but what if they visually, by the way, my husband's that way. He says he doesn't have visual. I think he has auditory personally, but there's just certain things he does not see or can't figure out. And so that is really important. Weak brain muscle. This has been my right now, my love is weak brain muscle because of my work in neurofeedback. And I should come back and do just neurofeedback. There isn't one kind, there are several. The one that I utilize in my office and the one I recommend to clients is a particular kind. We want to make sure that we use the right neurofeedback because guess what? We have two halves of a brain. They need to communicate effectively. If one piece of your brain is weakened because of trauma, because of genetics, then guess what? It does not communicate effectively. And if this side of the brain doesn't communicate, and imagine this, brush your teeth with your left hand, right? If you're right-handed, brush your teeth with your right hand. Guess what happens? You're like, I don't know, this doesn't work, right? Or go home from work a different way, right? That you're used to, right? That happens to me. I'm not a native Texan, and yet I still get lost. And if my GPS goes out, forget it. I'm like I've been lost in Texas, like where I'm literally 15 minutes from my house and I'm lost for an hour and a half because I don't know where I'm at because my GPS is not working. So I think that we have to understand that the brain, if it doesn't communicate effectively, it's not strong because it is a muscle, then we can have a lot of aggression. We can have a lot of what looks like manipulation. We can have a lot of what looks like I'm not doing it, disobedience, just flat out disobedience. I'm not doing so much around that. Mental flexibility is another one, right? We need to train. Some people are like, and I'll give you an example. Some of you have great mental flexibility for some things, but not others. And let me tell you how I know. Okay, I am to a point in my life where I cannot go into a busy mall. If I go into a busy mall, I'm just done. I'm not doing it, not going to crowded places. By the way, the age has a lot to do with that. But some kids, right, teens, young adults, they don't have the mental flexibility to be able to read quickly and clearly, a shift in schedules, a shift in what we were going to do. And so mental flexibility is something that you typically learn prior to age 6. But some kiddos, it just takes longer and you have to do the right inputs to get them to learn, right? Mental flexibility. Demand tolerance, if you're not familiar with PDA, a lot of people in the US are not familiar with, I hate the name, pathological demand avoidance. But the reality is in the US, PDA is not understood. A lot of neuropsych people won't even acknowledge it, yet the research has been done in Europe. My 9-year-old, when we figured that last piece, the PDA piece, oh my gosh, it made such a difference in life. And so that's really important. Demand tolerance just means some kids, some demands don't bother them and some do. And that's just, it's very preferential. For me, working out, I don't like to work out. I'm just going to say it. Why? Even though I know it's better for me, I have a demand intolerance. I hate doing it. It doesn't feel comfortable. It really is not good for me. But
For me, could I just tell a quick story about demand intolerance?
yes.
I used to be much heavier. I've lost a
Mhm.
lot of weight, but when I was heavy and I would try to lose weight and it wouldn't work, and then my husband would be like, "Ah, what are you eating?" or "Why are you eating that?" Or I got to a point where I would like want to eat at him. And when I heard someone tell me that, I'm like, that's what that is. I'm just rebelling.
Yes, you're
I just,
rebelling, right? Yeah,
yeah,
you're rebelling. And we do it too. By the way, I always
it's
say
crazy.
yeah, adults are not much different than kids, I always say. We just get, no one's telling us what to do. Incomplete assessment or wrong assessment, I'm going to talk about that. Lack of deep sleep. Again, sleep is one thing, but if we're not getting enough REM sleep, if we're not getting good quality, at minimum, right, 8 to 10 hours for most young children and teens. Short-term and long-term memory recall. Again, if you tell a child something they forget, or you've tried charts, there's a lot of strategies that I teach around short-term and long-term memory recall. My eldest has really bad long-term recall memory, really, really bad. Lack of brain integration, both halves working together, which we've talked about, but that's a different part of muscle strength. Toxicity in the body and the brain. Again, this goes back to environmental toxicity that we can't do a lot about, but we can do some things to detox our children and detox our bodies so we can minimize toxicity. And then we definitely want to detoxify the brain. And there's a couple of things besides neurofeedback. There's some obviously supplementation that can help do that. Language processing is huge. Huge. How we process language, men, girls and boys process it differently, the brain. That is huge. The language that you're using is probably not correct. And so I teach parents what is the right words for this particular kid. Because if you use the wrong language, you're going to set some child off. I'm telling you, if my husband uses the wrong language with me, come on, let's be real with everybody. If your spouse or partner uses the wrong words, you are set off. I know I am. Yesterday, he just knows. We've been married for what, 26 years now, 27 years. Like, don't use those words. Don't use it because it triggers me. So we need to really understand. And a lot of the words we use with children just trigger some children into aggression, into anger, into I'm done, or destroy your whole house. So we got to make sure we use the right language. Genetic factors, obviously, predisposition is about 20% of things, not the end all and be all, but it's important if dyslexia, if PDA, anything runs in your family. And if you have adopted children, like I do, I don't know. I've got 2 kids, I don't know some of the things that they're facing or that's coming up. So I think it's important to ask family members, but again, get as much if you are adopting or foster adopt to see how much. I actually recently, when we adopted our son, got a whole profile on his mother, and that gave me some answers to what we're facing that was really, really hard that I didn't have in the beginning that I had after adoption. So that was really good. Stress load. And this is like, I don't understand when parents don't understand that children have stress. You have stress, so they do. And you may think, what stress do they have, right? They don't do anything. They don't pay bills. They just go to school or whatever. Stress is all humans, all animals, all people, all things that are living have stress. So it's important that we all have different tolerances to stress, and we all respond to stress differently. I respond to stress, right, in one way that my husband does. And so we all have different ways. So children are different, and some of them respond in anger. Some of them respond in manipulation. They're really letting you know, I'm done. I'm done. We call it in our house, we're done. We have no more grace left. There's no more grace. I have it. I'm done. I'm going to bed because I cannot do this anymore. Yeah. So definitely adoptive parents need to definitely do some research, and you may not know. You're just going to have to go through it. And the last thing, which is environmental factors. And this is my favorite. I mean, I work with all of these. And when I work with you, I do consultation on all of these and teaching and training. But my environmental factors are my favorite because they're the easiest to fix. See, like genetic factors, I can't fix genetic factors. We can't do much except be aware, right? Assessment is great, but guess what I tell people all the time? Assessment is not the end all be all. It's important, it's a tool, but to get results, which is what you all are looking for, it's the environmental factors that are so important. Schedules, systems, the adults in the room, siblings, academic environment, and partner unity if you are parenting with a partner. These are the ones that we have the most control over. And these are the ones where we really can see the best change in terms of inputs, right? Here is the challenge. A lot of parents don't want to do the work. And I'm just going to be real honest. It takes work. It's the same reason I don't work out and don't have six-pack abs, because I don't want to do the work. I just don't. And I don't want to stop eating carbs. So that you get what you get, right? So these are some, not the end all and be all, but a lot of what people miss when they come to me. I work with people where they've tried several things and they don't know else what to do, and they come to me and we get them some good results. All right, moving on to the next.
We do have a couple questions
What are the questions, ma'am?
We want to know how do we get our kids tested for like the processing deficiency, and how do we get rid of toxins and those sorts of things?
Maybe, let me give you the short. It's a complicated question. The visual processing is easy. I can send to you on Facebook. There are some, just look up visual processing something, and there are a lot of groups, and I have a list that I give to my parents on local DFW doctors who do visual processing therapy and Sharpe. If wherever you're at, if you go to Facebook and you look that group of visual processing disorder or visual processing therapy, there's like groups, and in there you can ask what city you're in. You need someone who has the training not only to diagnose but also to treat, because my daughter needed to go through therapy. I do some of that therapy, but I am not a visual therapist, so I refer out, and that's how you can find. You are going to have to get tested. There is a charge. Some places, when I went through it, I couldn't afford the therapy, and so some people, some places have home programs, but you have to be really consistent. I mean, if you're not consistent, forget it. Everything in life is about consistency, right? Yeah, but that's how you do it. As far as detoxification, that is a more comprehensive question. It depends on the age of your child. It depends on the sensory issues they may have in terms of any kind of sensory processing, because they don't like to touch things with food, smell, that kind of thing. The general answer is this. I mean, you guys probably most know this. The general stay away from things that are not real food is step one. I mean, at your best, anything you eat that has a label on it is going to toxify, right? And that's for all humans, right? So what happens is we get over toxified because the food is the number one way that we toxify our bodies, because we can't control smog, right? I can't control smog out in the world, but I can control what goes in my mouth. And I know this is a whole nother, I'm a certified feeding dynamics coach, and maybe we should do a feeding dynamics, because both my kids have sensory food issues as well. And I actually can do that, but start with real food. Start with supplementation in terms of vitamins and minerals that are clean. And I don't like to recommend brands, because I like to talk to people first before I recommend something. I also don't recommend things I haven't tried. I want to really try, or my clients have tried. But start with that. The other thing is make sure they get enough water. Make sure they sweat enough. Again, because sweat and water detoxify. And then magnesium baths are beautiful. I really like magnesium baths. You can get good magnesium in most places. If you can get them in to take a bath, that would be really awesome. Those are just some simple. Again, there are people who do more complex ones that I refer out, but you have to be careful. Let me just give you there are a lot of these crunchy groups out in the world. When you detoxify a child, you have to be careful to not do it too fast, because if you do it too fast with certain supplementations, it can cause some harm. So you have to be very careful. But simple things, like everyday things, are like the food and water and sweating and magnesium baths. Those are great. And then having just try to get as much clean food into your kid. And I know that's so hard, because mine has a toxic addiction, and I get it. So yeah, that's the simple way. It's just like us, right? Eat clean food, water, and try to stay away from processed stuff as much as humanly possible. I know, no shame, no guilt, no condemnation. Let's just do the best that we can, right? The most important factor. Any other questions, Michelle?
For now, well, I think Janelle might need to reach out to you. She's got a long comment here. You might want to read it, but
okay, yeah, my dog just picky. Yes, picky eaters I'm being fed by her referral. He eats carbs, only carbs. Okay, and few things we are having. Okay, yes, I have both extremes. My 9-year-old is super carb man, and my new one is all protein, which you would think would not be a problem, but it can be a problem. So here's the thing. Yes, I think you're going to have to reach out because I am a certified feeding dynamics coach, and I do work on feeding issues with people. I don't do as much of it because I don't really advertise the feeding part, but it's part of what I do with my clients because a lot of kids on the spectrum, a lot of kids with ADHD have sensory processing around food issues, smells, and touch. So reach out to me so that we could come up with a plan, and we'll talk at the end different ways that I work with families. And so yes, but there is a way to get out of the carb cycle because I have a 9-year-old who's a carb junkie, so I completely understand. Most important factor are the adults. All right, I know nobody wants to hear this. Everybody wants to hear something else. But adults can make genetics worse in the environment. So if you are yelling or screaming, I'm going to teach you a tool to stop that. Okay, we got to stop because you're the most powerful. And as soon as someone yells or screams or raises your voice, depending on where your child's at that point, they go into fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, and if a child goes into fight, flight, or freeze, or a teen or a young adult, I work with young adults as well. At that point, the brain is going to freeze up, right? And at that point, we can't learn and we can't figure out. And I'm going to show you the tools for the parents. So go ahead and go to the next one. How do adults make genetics works? Why do adults continue to use strategies that do not work? So how do adults make genetics works? You are the most powerful person in the room. Period. The end. It doesn't matter, which is why I work with parents to resolve these issues versus teens and adults. I do work with teens and adults when necessary, but I have to work with the adult. There's no way. If you send your child, this is why therapy does not work. If you're sending your child to a therapist of any sort and you're not seeing change, it's because they haven't worked with you intensively. You have to work with the adult. There's no way around it. Why? You are in the environment. I have kids who come, I used to do play-based therapy. They'd come to my office and they were perfect. I didn't trigger them. They weren't upset. They were joyous children in my office. They go home and I'll heck breaks loose. So they go to school and I'll heck breaks loose, right? Because you must equip yourself with what I call the coaching skills that you need to powerfully influence the kids in your life, okay? And why do adults continue to use the strategies that do not work? I think sometimes it's because they don't have new ones. That can be the answer. I'm going to answer it because we're close on time, but also because I think, and I'm going to say this in the most loving, kindest way, we have a mindset that we believe, hey, children should obey the first time. We have an anger issue. We're overwhelmed or stressed out and full of anxiety. And really, we want children to do it our way, as opposed to realizing that they're the children and we need to respond to them in the way that's going to work for them. And that's going to cost you as a parent. I'm going to tell you right now. And I don't mean just financially. It's going to cost your own pride. You're going to have to humble yourself. You're going to have to learn to control you. And no one wants to hear that. And here's why. Here's why. We are so busy, and there's no excuse for that. We need to really take a hard look at our lifestyles, and is our lifestyle not conducive to the children that we have? And I've had to do that, and my husband's had to do that. We've had to take some hard looks at how do we create a lifestyle that works for the kids and the demands that we are under and our jobs. This is really important. Here's another thing. Children don't have full brain till age 25. And if you have a child who's not neurotypical, that may go even longer, right? And so we have to coach them through them. You're the adult, they're the child. I've worked with some tough parents, and they come to me and they will not do what I ask. And they won't do what I ask because they have a mindset that doesn't understand that children are not doing this on purpose, and don't understand that children are very egocentric. They're selfish by nature. They're not thinking about you, nor should they be at this age of the stage of the game, okay? And that's hard to hear because my husband, who is a special ed teacher, had a tough time understanding that my son had PDA. It was difficult for him as an adult. He finally got it, and since he did, we work with couples as marriage and family coaches around parenting issues as well as communication issues, because if you can be on the same page, it makes things go so much faster. And if you parent alone, then we've got to find you a community, and those communities do exist. Let's move on. to the next slide. Parent mindset. Okay, here we go. This is going to be important. This is the most powerful tool I can leave you with in a short 50-minute webinar. There are 3 stages to parenting our children, okay? For those of you who are parents, okay? The first is caregiver, meaning that when they're usually prior to 8, we're just keeping them alive. It's all about keeping the children alive, feeding them, changing them, making sure they're in clean clothes, making sure all the things, right? Some children are going to struggle through this stage if they have certain neuro tendencies, and we're going to have to learn. I'm going to give you some advice. You're going to have to figure out which one you really want to go to war with, okay? There are some things that my new child does around the feeding table that just irk me, trigger the heck out of me. I'm telling y'all, you got to be aware of your triggers, because if you're not aware of your own triggers, for me, messy eaters are a trigger. It's like, oh my goodness, right? And I have an 8-year-old who eats like a 4-year-old, okay? So you can imagine what eating is like in my house, and I'm coaching him through that in a way that's loving, because there are just triggers. So most of the time when they're young, we're in the caregiver mode. Here's where we fail. And I say we as the parent community. We can't make the transition from caregiver to coach, right? Because we still want to control, in many essence, that pre-adolescent. And we don't realize they're shifting. Even though they're neurodiverse, they're shifting into a pre-adolescent, which is somewhere between 10 and 13, and they're shifting, their hormones are shifting, their perspective is shifting, their independence is shifted. Now they have their own needs, their own wants, their own desires about life. And so if we don't shift to coach mode when we need to be coach, which should be, by the time they're 13, we should be done with the coaching. Okay. And that's hard for parents because we want to control. If we want to control, we can't move into coach. And coach means a coach is not angry, right? A coach is not yelling. A coach is doing what they need to do. Weaved in there are parent responsibilities of boundaries, our parent responsibilities of what's acceptable and what is not acceptable. Great question, Sherry. Developmental delay. I just mentioned that is a great question. My 8-year-old eats like a 4-year-old, y'all. Literally think about what a 4-year-old eats like. That's my 8-year-old. Okay, sometimes like a 3-year-old. So what do? We respond emotionally to the developmental age the child is. That's a great question. So I'm giving you general typical ages, but if a child cognitively is 5, but they're chronologically 9, then you respond 5. My new child, in many discipline strategies, I'm responding as a 4-year-old. I'm not responding as an 8-year-old. Why? Because developmentally there's trauma, developmentally there's some triggers there, and so I have to go back. And so you have to figure out, where is your child chronologically and where are they developmentally, and guess what, where are they emotionally? Those are all different, right? I mean, sometimes on a given day I'm all different ages. Sometimes I'm 12 emotionally, right? It's like, so we need to stop and go, wait, where are they in this moment? And respond. Now, that doesn't mean that we're controlling or that we are dictatorial in the way we hand out commands, okay? And believe me, if you're, I believe in firmness, and I believe in accountability. I believe in respect. I believe in really strong values. But I also know that the number one concern is we don't want to damage the relationship with our child. We don't want to, what I say is, break connection. If you break connection with your child, over time, that's not going to reap good rewards when they're older and they're bigger than you and taller than you, and you can't move them. And if you're fostering or adopting, again, we're dealing with children who are already coming in which they don't trust adults, because they've had experiences that, rightfully so, my 8-year-old does not trust me fully yet, because he has every right to, because adults have failed him his whole life, including his own biological parents, right? So everybody's failed this kid. And so we're building trust. At the same time, we also have to have boundaries and consequences and all those loving things. So here's the question. I want everybody to stop for a second. Last time you were ready to just smack your kid, let's just be honest, in your head, you were like, oh my God, I'm about to either yell or I'm about to smack this child. Just really go back there. Everybody go back there for a second. Okay. I want you to stop and ask yourself, what is the narrative you are telling yourself before you now start to discipline, or what I would call punish? I want the narrative. The narrative is the story you're telling yourself in that moment that you have now reached the end of yourself. You are ready to yell, scream, hand down a punishment, not a discipline. A discipline maintains connection. I have to show him who I'm in control. Yes, that's my husband had that one. Yes, I have to show him I'm in control. So that's one. Very, very, really narrow. I don't deserve this complete disrespect. Absolutely, that's mine too. That one's like, really? Are you kidding me? All the things I do for you all day, every day, right? The child is so willfully disrespectful, and I'm going to make sure they don't treat me like this again, and yet it's going to happen again, right, Christine? Because that's not the answer, but yes, that's the narrative. That's the narrative. You must, as the adult in the room, control your narrative first before you hand out anything, right? Because if you don't, if those are the narratives, by the way, no shame, no guilt, no condemnation. All right. I do this for a living, and there are days I got to walk out of the room and breathe, because if I don't walk out of the room with the truth, I'm going to punish, not discipline. Right? I need them to learn to pay attention to their surroundings, so I don't always have to do it for them. Absolutely. And Shari, I think that you just reminded me another thing I work with my parents really deeply on is stay present. Doesn't he know I'm trying to help? Yes, they don't know. By the way, Tim, Seltz, and all they don't know you're trying to help. So let go of that dream right now. Let go of the dream of how I'm helping. How can they function in the world? Yes. And that leads me to this other strategy that I didn't put up there. I work a lot with moms. I mean, I coach a few dads that are part of couples, but mostly moms is who I camp with, right? So I know moms really well. Y'all need to stop being in the past, meaning feeling guilty or shameful for things you should have done. And y'all need to stop living in the future. In other words, if you're sitting here going, this child is never going to learn to focus, and how will he ever go to college? Or how will he ever pay his own rent? Or how will he ever form a relationship, right? That's being in the future, and that stress in your own mindset is going to kill it. You're not going to be able to coach. You're just going to lose it. You must stay present. I'm going to tell you what you ask yourself. Are you ready? You must stay present. Yes, all of us want our children to be successful. Remember my story of Maya? My Maya in high school cried and had many breakdowns about how will I ever do anything in life. That girl, makes almost 6 figures a year now on her own as a business owner, and she has dyscalculia, y'all, and she charges money for things. So it's that's me. Yes, Grace, exactly. So take captive your narrative. Okay, you can't control children. You can coach children, but you can't control them. Take control of your narrative. And if your narrative is negative, if it's blaming, shaming, or complaining, then you need to stop, because at that point, you're not going to discipline. You're going to punish, and you're going to ruin relationship and connection with your child. And guess what? If your child doesn't trust you, then it's going to be harder as they get older. Trust me. Okay. Physical aggression to parents. Yes. Make sure children, I mean, it's like coming at you with a knife, or a child's throwing chairs. Obviously, make sure yourself and everybody are safe. I don't sit there and talk about feelings if my child's throwing a chair across the room, right? I'm not going to do that. But you do need to stop them. I don't believe in yelling and screaming at them in that moment, because you're just going to make it worse. But I do believe in doing whatever it takes to make sure you and others are safe. That's number one. Okay. And so we don't have time to get into like, how do you deal with kids that are always physically aggressive, but I do work with that. And so you got to reach for me online, right? Make sure, that you're in a safe place, right? And that's most important. By the way, if you're parenting with a male, they can be so helpful in this. I know they're not always around, but make sure, work with them that they're not also aggressive in the sense they want to protect and really be firm, but they also should not be yelling either, because then that just ruins trust. But they should, they should pull muscle. All right, go to the next one. All right, failure is data for success. One of the things you need to do is collect data on your own child. This is what I do with parents, and I walk through with parents. It's really, really important to find out what are the triggers for your child and track that. And there's no way to get around this. You've got to track it. What did they eat right before they triggered? What happened right before they triggered? What is the environmental situation in which they're triggering over and over again? You need to collect patterns. Some people will say to me, and when I work with parents, is, oh, there's no pattern. That's not true. I'm sorry, it's not. We are all creatures of habit. All of us humans, we are creatures. We love consistency. And if we haven't figured out the pattern, it's because we haven't figured it out. And that's where I can be really good, right? It's really important. What are the patterns that are happening? Okay. And these are the 3 questions that I help parents answer and what I coach parents through. What are the skills that your child's missing? Are they missing patience? Are they missing self-control? Are they missing anger management? Are they missing conflict resolution skills? What are they missing? Right? I've worked with TBI kids. I hear you. I've worked with TBI. Yeah, TBI. I got a child to read and to do what they needed to do that had TBI. It was not easy, but mom and I worked as a team and we got some good results. What are the skills? So instead of making it personal, oh, they're doing this to me. Let's all grow up. We are the adults in the room. You have to ask yourself, what are the skills they don't have? Instead of personalizing it, you got to start doing some analysis about what are the skills. What are the character traits they are missing? Right? We want kids to be kind, but we spend no time. We tell them to be kind, but that's not helpful. I want you to know that a lot of kids, it doesn't work to tell them. There are auditory issues that they're not, they have to be kinesthetic learners. It's just not telling kids. If y'all, let me ask you all this. I just have to be frustrated for a second. How many of you all know that y'all shouldn't be eating in and out every day? How many of y'all know you should be exercising 5 days a week? How many of y'all know you shouldn't speed on the highway or someone go catch you? How many of you know you should have a lot of bottled water in your garage right now and food for like 6 months? How many of you know so many things? You shouldn't be using credit because credit has a lot of interest, but you still do it. Right? We're no different. And so we must ask, if a child is not kind, we don't tell them to be kind, right? There are several strategies to use, right? We don't model kindness if we're yelling at them. I'm preaching to myself, by the way. We just don't. So there's so much to this. And the last thing, what incentives motivate him? Guess what? All humans, and I have not yet ran into a child. Now, you may have not found the right incentives. Not all incentives are money. Not all incentives are privileges. Not all incentives are food. I don't like using food, by the way, in general, because it's not a good dynamic to get into, but maybe going out to eat, it can be a really wonderful incentive. If you haven't figured out incentives, it's because we haven't figured out either the right incentive or your child is telling you, nah, none of those are working because what I really want is connection. What I really want is consistency. What I really want is somebody to stop yelling and screaming and trying to control me. What I really want is I want to feel part of this family and I don't feel part of this family. What I really want is stop being scared because every time you raise your voice or every time you and mom and dad get into a fight or every time I don't feel secure. And so that's what I really want. See, incentives work, but sometimes the incentives are not very obvious to our children. Sometimes we can ask the child if they're verbal. Sometimes if a child has the enough emotional literacy to tell you. My 9, we have made great strides, but he does not immediately tell me what he needs. It is not evident for him. So these are the 3 questions when I coach parents, I go through. Let's go to the next one. Oh, we skipped one. Did we skip? We skipped anything? No? Okay. Oh, okay, there we go. All right. Assessment, we're going to get through these really quick. Stop talking so much. Assessment and therapies. Why are some assessments incomplete? Because we work in silos, right? I wish my reading therapist would have told me about dyscalculia. I had no clue. She never told me. I figured it out way too late in the game with my eldest. That's okay. We're doing a redo. But my point is, there is no one assessment that's going to tell you everything. So what I do with parents is I go through what I call an assessment gap. I look at all of your assessments. I meet with you and the child, and then I figure out where are the gaps in assessment. And I also am an insurance ninja, so I know how to work with insurances. If you don't have insurance, then I always let parents know, hey, you really don't need this. You just need therapy. You don't really need to figure out, but this is what I think is happening. So, and then why do some therapies not work? Again, if they're not working with the parent, not going to work fully to what you need. I do believe in play-based therapy with trauma and certain things. But again, if they're not working with the parent, the adult. And then the other thing is if you're having trouble at school, you are probably in the wrong school environment. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but sometimes the school environment is just not the right environment for your child. So this is why assessment therapy is the other thing. ABA therapy, I'm not here to say ABA therapy doesn't work sometimes, but ABA therapy actually triggers many kids. And so it does not work for for a lot of children. And again, I love my ABA friends. I get it works with a profile that's very specific. And then at certain ages, it stops working. And then we pull out. So that's why I could talk all day about this, but I work with parents on making sure we get the right assessment. The lie, stop believing the lie that children and teens are doing this on purpose. Stop. You've got to get over that. I really mean this with all my heart and love. You have to stop believing the lie that your kid is doing this on purpose, that they don't like you, that they're manipulative. If you don't stop with that, you will never, ever, ever get your child to connect in order to do what you need to do. The other thing is, let me just throw the other side. Sometimes I see parents, they'll yell and scream, but they won't do the discipline that's necessary because they won't let their child live with the logical consequences of what's at stake. And that is because some mamas, not all mamas, but a lot of mamas, y'all don't want your children to understand logical consequences. And so there is a balance between logical consequences that we must let kids live with and punishment. And so what happens is we blur the line and we either go one extreme or the other. We either are like, we're just going to yell, scream, and punish you and take away everything, which that's why that doesn't work. Or we're just going to let you continue to not understand consequences and take responsibility for choices. So there's a middle ground, y'all. There's a middle ground. Children want to obey, they want to do well academically, they want to be successful, and they want to be independent, and they don't want you to nag them all the time. All my children tell me that, all right? So that's really important all the time. So if you need more help, okay, hopefully some of this has created a light bulb, but you need a roadmap, is that I do homeschool coaching. I do learning behavior therapy with families. I have an individual program that it works individually with families, but I also have a group coaching that's at a lower price point. And so what I want to say is that I work with families to find a price point that works for them, and we will figure it out. I have never yet turned away someone who's willing to do what they got to take to do this. I also do homeschooling stuff if you're considering homeschooling or you want to explore homeschooling as an option. And last, parent coaching is really important. Sometimes parent coaching is where it's at. But here's the last thing I will say. If you haven't found the secret sauce of your child's brain, it's because you're not done searching. And every child has a secret sauce. I have a 99% success rate. I've measured that. I have parent reviews. I've worked with the hardest cases, and I've worked with kids who've been like hospitalized and in trauma centers. And that is because I've lived this. I think that's what makes me an expert. But I also have, the educational background. So please don't give up hope. Unfortunately, I do not take Medicaid. However, if that is your only option, I'm here to say that I have not ever turned away a parent who's willing to work this out with me. So I'm willing to do it. I also have a partial scholarship fund for people who are foster adopt parents or for single mamas. So if that's you, I have a partial scholarship right now, a fund that I need to use by the end of the year. So if anybody's in that category, please reach out. Text is best. Don't email me. Please text me. And I would love to work with you guys.
And I did put her phone number in the chat box so that you can text her. We are out of time. I know that Elizabeth has another appointment or something else that she had to get to. There were just a few more slides. I wanted to let you know a little bit more about Consolidated Planning Group, but I'll just say that we offer a free consultation. If you want to talk about the financial side, the state and federal benefits that are available for your children, planning for retirement, life insurance, those sorts of things, you just give us a call and we are happy to walk you through that. We will be reaching out to you to see if you want to schedule this appointment. It's over Zoom, usually about 30 to 45 minutes, no big deal. I hope you all have a fantastic day and that you've learned a lot from her great talk. And please reach out to her or to us. Yes, you will receive a copy of this recording. If you don't see it in your email, go look at our YouTube channel. That's all you have to do. Go look at the YouTube channel. And no, we don't give out certificates or anything like that. So sorry. Have a great day, everybody. I hope to hear from you soon. And I hope that this was useful. Bye, everybody.